everybody. Welcome back to the Flip Up Podcast. We are back. It was not a fluke. 2 episodes in a row. That is right. And we are bringing back the special guests. Today, we are joined with Des.
Yeah, guys. Welcome back to another episode. We're bringing more Infinity Heat in for these episodes. Obviously, if you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, be sure to like and subscribe. I don't know. But a few announcements. If you're wondering why my background's very blurry, it's because, once again, I'm in the moving process. So here we go again with, all right, I'm moving. So we have a bunch of pre-recorded episodes on the way, like not trying to spoil, but the Sunday and this Tuesday, obviously schedule is kind of different when we upload, but we've got a lot of guests lined up. So we'll have stuff when we are in periods where we can't record. So just be aware of that. We will try our best not to have any breaks in between, but we may have 1 week off, but we'll see, obviously. Secondly, we mentioned this in the last episode, but we did mention that there was big announcements when it came to DCI. Aside from doing takeovers for the summer, both me and Lucas are actually teaching DCI this year, but not at the same groups. Lucas is teaching at Jersey Surf, and I'll be teaching at Music City. And obviously, we both have full-time jobs, so our involvement is, I'd say, not the minimum, but a little above the minimum. Like, we've been doing a lot with like the audition process. We've been doing a lot with like preseason, and then obviously we'll be hopping on tour. So a lot to look forward to. Be really cool, and also we'll get you guys a lot of content from the groups that we're teaching at. So be really, really cool. And obviously, go give them a lot of support. And yeah, that's that. All right. Without further ado, guys, here is Des.
Alrighty, folks. So my name is Des. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm supposed to talk to y'all a little bit about my marching experience. So I've been marching since I was about 12 or 13. I started off at a really teeny tiny Christian school down in Florida, and ultimately I wound up transferring schools my 10th grade year, sophomore year, into the whole public school system in Florida. And that's kind of where I discovered indoor. And that really became like my thing. I was a front ensemble member up until that point. Parents didn't want me doing color guard and becoming like one of the guard guys. But I saw cymbals and I was like, oh, wait a second. I think I can probably get away with doing something that's gosh darn similar to color guard, but it's percussion. So I made that transition my junior year, and I still remember one of the main motivating factors was the 2016 Infinity show, Everything Starts from a Dot. So I remember watching this show, and that would have been Brian Kendrick's age out year. So there was Brian on that line, Olive on that line, Bane. Like it was stacked.
Iconic line right there.
Oh, it was
one
great.
of my favorites.
Yeah, if you're watching this at home and you haven't seen that lot video, pause, flip up, and watch that video right now. That is a great line right there.
Really good stuff. But I remember that was really what made me realize that this is art. This is something that no one else on the floor is doing. And it really encouraged me to get into it. In the following year, I remember there was one really like standout performer who just had all of this really visceral energy that I wanted to emulate. And that was Olive, who ultimately wound up becoming my teacher over in I2 when I marched Infinity in 2019 for their open class group. In that time, I wound up taking a year hiatus for some transitions in my life. So between 2019 and 2021, I started socially transitioning. And that was a really, really rough year. And I realized that there was absolutely no way that the indoor thing was going to work. So I wound up coming back for the 21 season because who else was doing a season during COVID? And it was a growing experience, but it was really, really good. And most recently, I've been able to integrate some of what I've learned through those years in marching band, through the marching arts, with what I do in other aspects of my life. So I'm also a drag performer, and I get to play cymbals with all of that. And I had a lot of that going on through the duration of this current season in indoors, so the 2022 season, which was also my age out, which brings us to where we're at right now. So really good stuff.
Yeah. 2022 Infinity, obviously, which actually brings up a great point. All of us are actually age outs, which we talked about in the previous episode, but I just want to make this very, very brief. How does it feel aging out? Because me and Lucas talked about it already. Like, how are you feeling?
So I know I had talked to y'all before a little bit about like that post-season depression, but it's not like the age out finality for me where it's like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to perform again. Because I perform by myself. So I still have that aspect that continues to carry over.
That's
And
so
I'm fortunate.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm also fortunate enough to still have teaching opportunities that keep me involved in that community. And it feels much less like this weight on my shoulders of, oh my goodness, what am I going to do next? And much more of this constant project of how do I now extend that to other people and allow them to facilitate the same amount of growth that I was able to have.
Yeah, I totally feel that too. Like, especially, I mean, on finals night, I definitely had that feeling of like, oh wow, it's over. I'm not going to perform anymore. But as I'm starting to go into teaching Jersey Surf this summer, I'm thinking like, oh well, this is just the next stage for me. I was a performer and now I get to be the teacher. And how am I going to succeed in doing that? And where will I be as a teacher in the next couple of years? It's just the next project.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say the same. I know for me, like a lot of people, they are really like, band is basically like their lives, you know, like they don't see what goals come out of being done with the activity. But I know for me, when I was done, I almost felt a feeling of relief because although I'm going to miss being a performer, like me and Lucas can now put in, like, we don't have an excuse to do flip up anymore. Cause like when we're marching, it's like, well, like we still get an aspect of like getting judged. Like, why are you guys teaching? You guys should be marching. You still have the years. And it's like, you know, but now it's like, there's no excuses. We can actually, and we even have the history to back up our actions now. So we can confidently, you know, move forward with this activity. So I don't even feel like my life's at a pause, you know, just like you, Des, and just like you, Lucas. It's like this thing keeps progressing. And if I just decide someday I want to be done, I can be done, you know, and not feel the pressure of, oh, there's a timer. And once that timer's up, I can't do it anymore. So,
yeah. I think it's almost this process of it's another kind of transition of transitioning the kind of momentum that you had in one capacity into another and allowing that to carry you forward in a new way, which I think is really lovely.
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So I guess moving on to our next topic, what we really want to talk about today was just getting back into the discussion about inclusion and diversity within the marching arts. And we just wanted to know your feelings on it, how you felt going through marching arts, your experiences, and where you think we're at now.
Right. So for this, I kind of have to backtrack a little bit. The reason I wound up changing schools when I was younger was because in Florida, if you're at a private school, they're allowed to write whatever rules they want. and my identity was not in alignment with the schools. So I was actually kicked out for being the way that I was, being queer, and the school provided my parents with resources. And I went through change therapy, conversion therapy for the next 2 years. And for those who don't know what that is, that's essentially where a person is put up in a room with a person who likely is not a licensed mental health practitioner, and they try and change innate aspects of your identity. The only real support system I had in place while I was going through that was through the marching arts. And I was fortunate enough in high school that I had this great community around me, this really loving space to better understand who I was as a person. What I wasn't really prepared for was what that would look like outside of that little bubble. So once I began marching Infinity and hearing the discourse from other independent groups, it became really blatantly obvious that that kind of community, that kind of acceptance wasn't really universal. And I really struggled my first year. I think this is something y'all may be able to see more from an external perspective, but the marching arts as a whole are dominated by cis straight white dudes, especially in percussion. And even beyond the things that are just casually said, the heteronormative atmosphere is not really conducive to self-discovery in those aspects. So I really needed a break and time to myself to figure those things out. And when I did, it was easier to come in as, a fully fleshed out person. But what I would really like to see moving forward is an environment where people are able to have those experiences within the groups that exist. It's not just, you on your own, and it's a little more communal. And that's something I've started. I started some projects throughout the course of this season to kind of rectify that, but we'll see where those wind up.
Yeah, I like, you look back years ago to where this activity is growing. I'm not even going to say that it's 100% now, but Des, where would you rate it? Like, in terms of where the goal should be. Like, if you were to give it a percentage from like 1980s, like people were hazing each other. Like, believe it or not, guys, this activity used to be really, really rough. Like 1980s, people used to haze each other. I don't want to say it, but like you hear like our cases and you hear like all these terrible things, to where this activity is now. I mean, stuff with George Hopkins, it was like, I feel like once George Hopkins was out of the activity, I feel like that's when things started to get better. And then now this leads me to my question. Where would you say we're at in terms of reaching full potential?
No, and I think this is really important to talk about, right? Because it's really easy to get stuck in this fixed mindset and be like, well, we've grown exponentially. Things are so much better. And I don't think anyone would deny that. But I think also, as kind of the next generation stepping into taking ownership of this, we have to really begin to see the ways in which we not only take it from good, we move beyond that into great. And that means not just creating a safe space for some people, but for all people. It means allowing open dialogue, and for the responsibility to not just lie with the individuals possessing those identities. Because I know that's something I even still experienced, where especially with like pronoun usage and things like that, little micro things like that, the responsibility mostly fell to me to correct other people that were surrounding me. There wasn't always that support of like, let's do this thing. Let's make sure that we're calling people the right things and respecting each other. And I know that sounds probably a little snowflakey, but I think it's really important.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, part of that is it's not just waiting for it to happen and thinking like, okay, we're in this activity and everything's going the way it is. But I think it also falls upon every single member that's in the activity to think, okay, it's like being proactive about it. Having that like in your mind already, thinking, okay, if you're going to meet someone the first time, you can't just assume everything about them. And just being ready to just help push things forward rather than sitting back and being like, okay, I'm gonna march and whatever happens, happens.
Exactly. Guys, there's a reason why we chose Dez specifically to be on here, aside from being a CYMBAL player. Um, obviously, you look at me and Lucas, right? And, we both identify as he, him, both male. What else can I say that's pretty generic? Basically
I'm a white guy.
Basically white, yeah. Straight. I'd say the only thing that puts us in a minor thing is like we play cymbals. Like people don't understand that, but like even still, that's just an instrument. That's not something that like like we identify ourselves as. Oh my god, running out of time. Okay, for some reason my Zoom.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah, like I was saying, guys, because we're using a different computer right now, we're put on a timer. So Lucas, we only got like 5 more minutes or something. But yeah, no, the reason why we have Dez on is because this is not our place to talk about. And also we, as educators, still are trying to better ourselves, right? There's just so much room still to improve. And also just having Dez on is, not even just for us, but also for everyone watching, just makes us more aware. Like I remember before you were mentioning stuff like you were talking to Olive and just sharing similarities because I mean, you guys remember we had Olive on, but I think most importantly, we had Molly Gormley, and she talked a lot about what it's like being a female in this activity. So we got to make sure we get everyone in here, because not only helps us also understand from, what we already do know, but also for you guys to understand because this activity is moving at a very rapid pace in the right direction. Obviously, there's still a lot of room to improve, but, you just got to keep working at it.
Yeah, and I think with the limited time we have left, this would be great for you, Des, to start talking about what you're doing with the Marching Arts Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah, absolutely. So this did kind of fall off the trailer throughout the course of the season. Things were getting kind of wild, kind of hectic, but I have begun revisiting a program that I started. So this is intended to be a nonprofit organization with essentially community outreach activism work. I set up a full Discord server with lots of different discussion panels to facilitate conversation across disparate and marginalized communities. So the Marching Arts Rainbow Coalition seeks to serve anybody who, regardless of whether or not you fall into one of those categories, it essentially allows you a place to find community, to find people like you. Because realistically, there may only be a few people in any given organization, but if you look nationally and hopefully at some point internationally, those numbers begin to grow exponentially. And I think there's a lot of power in solidarity and community. So that's something that I'm looking to foster as I begin to move into the role of educator, is also in the whole social outreach thing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Man, I wish I had more time on these Zooms, man. I'm like looking at the clock and I'm like, man, why do we have to end it now? Guys, unfortunately, we have to end it. semi early? Like, what are we at time wise?
We're actually just at 20 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Not too shabby.
Sweet. Which actually still roughly goes to where we're about, because you guys already know where we lead these conversations next. But thank you guys for tuning into another episode. But obviously, you guys already know the drill. Des, with 1 minute of time, but obviously we asked for one sentence. Des, if you could say one thing to the CYMBAL community, what would it be?
Lead with kindness and don't forget to watch your prep.
Yes.
Lead with kindness and don't forget to watch your prep.
Yeah.
I think that's
love that.
I think that's 3 watch your preps that we've gone.
Yeah. That is very true, guys. Make sure you watch your prep. But
Always.
yeah. But yeah, I know this episode we didn't talk a lot about cymbal playing, but we feel these are important. Like the episode we had with Molly, I think Olive even, we maybe rarely talk about cymbals, but like I said, this is our podcast. We can do whatever we want. So Lucas, I realized I was talking a lot. You can do the outro.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Remember to, as we said before, like the video, or if you're on Spotify, still like it. And follow us on, where are we? We're on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube and Spotify.
And MySpace. Follow us on MySpace.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, guys. It's been a great episode. We'll see you guys next week with the next podcast episode.